I was sitting at the back of the auditorium, eating a caramel-filled churro with my best friend. Down on the stage, the valedictorian of the journalism class had just been proposed to, complete with a massive bouquet, soft music, classmates holding up signs, and an audience in tears. And then, right in the middle of this highly emotional moment, a man screamed, "I paid for your college, you scammer!" It was my idiot husband. Everyone froze in shock. I wasn't expecting that kind of explosive reaction from him, which honestly made it way more entertaining than I could have ever hoped. But hold on, let me back up a little and tell you how we ended up here. Now, let's get into the story. My name is Katie. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Oak Haven, Ohio, a mid-sized Midwestern town with about 8,000,000 people. It's a small city, but we have a mall and a university, believe it or not. My mom, Martha, is a seamstress. She was both a mother and a father to me, supporting our household all on her own. She's a tiny, short woman with a notoriously short temper. I used to tease her and call her a corgi because she had short legs. It drove her crazy. After I finished high school, I decided to work to help out at home. College was a dream, but I kept pushing it to the back burner. I got a job as a cashier at Fresh Fair, the big supermarket in town, and I just stayed there. At 23, during a Sunday backyard BBQ hosted by a mutual friend, I met Ian Fletcher. I should have known better, but I was naive. Ian was 25 and sold sneakers at Step Right Shoes in the mall. To me, he was a hardworking guy with a steady income. He told me his biggest dream was to buy a house and start a family, the usual script guys pull out when they're trying to win you over. And I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. We dated for a year, and at 24, I married him. It was a simple courthouse wedding, no reception. Ian thought a party was a waste of money. Why blow money on a party for other people, babe? It's better to save up for our dream house. I agreed. He had a point. I put on a simple white dress, we went to the courthouse, got lunch at a diner with our families, and that was it. Husband and wife. I moved into the place he was already renting. It belonged to a friend of his mom's. The rent was cheap, there was no formal lease, just a handshake agreement. We split everything 50/50. I paid half the rent, he paid the other half. We split the utilities too. He covered internet and electricity. I covered water, gas, and the streaming services. We split groceries down the middle. It was a partnership that worked. Well, sort of. We both worked full-time retail schedules, 6 days a week. But inside the house, all the labor fell on me. I cooked, I cleaned, I did the laundry, I ironed. Ian didn't lift a finger. If I didn't do it, it didn't get done. The place would turn into a pigsty in 3 days. But I sucked it up. When I turned 25, I looked at myself at work and thought, I'm either getting out of here, or I'm going to die scanning barcodes. I wanted out of the checkout lane. I wanted an office. I wanted to wear a blazer. More than anything, I wanted to be a lawyer. Ever since I was a little girl watching legal dramas, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Fierce women in heels, putting away creeps and saving the innocent. I told Ian. He laughed. Not a sarcastic smirk, but a full-blown head-thrown-back belly laugh. Katie, why waste time and money going to college? A piece of paper isn't going to put food on the table. Of course it will, Ian. If I become a good lawyer, I'll make a lot of money. Don't kid yourself, Katie. There are more lawyers in the world than ants. You think you just graduate and magically start making 6 figures? College is a scam. I barely finished high school and look at me, making my $2,500 a month. I have my car, I pay my bills, I live well. $2,500. It's not nothing, but Ian said it like it was the salary of a Wall Street CEO. Did he really want to make $2,500 a month for the rest of his life? Because I didn't. I wanted more. And another thing. Katie. He kept going, riding his wave of arrogance. If you want to waste your time with this nonsense, do it with your own money. I'm not investing a dime into this pipe dream. That was fine by me. I worked, I didn't make much, but I was going to pay for my own tuition. I just needed to cut back on anything extra. I applied for the pre-law track at Oak Haven State University. I got in and even scored a nice academic grant because I did so well on my SATs. Then the new routine began. I swapped my shift at the supermarket to work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. When I got off, I'd rush home, speed clean the house, cook dinner, eat, and by 7 p.m., I was sitting in a lecture hall. I'd get home past 10 p.m., do the dishes, fold laundry, and study for exams until midnight. And Ian? He'd be on the couch playing Xbox or watching TV. Sometimes, when I dragged myself through the front door, he'd chime in, "Do you really think this is worth it, Katie? Look at you. You look wrecked. You've got bags under your eyes." I was wrecked. It was true. But I wasn't going to give up on my dream. Once I graduated, I'd make more money. And then we could buy our dream house even faster. Because yes, we were aggressively saving for our dream house. Every hour of overtime I worked, every holiday bonus, every spare dollar I had left over, I transferred to his account. Oh, Katie, you idiot. You deposited money into his account? Yes, folks, I did. Because he explained to me, with the confidence of a Wall Street broker, that his high-yield savings account had a much better APY than my standard checking account. And technically, it was true. So I trusted him. Every month I Venmo'd him $200, $300. At the end of the year, I sent more because of my holiday bonus. And on every single transaction, I typed the exact same memo, religiously. For our dream house, I typed it into the app with so much love. Dream house, dream house, dream house. As if every Venmo transfer was a brick in the wall of our future living room. In college, I made a friend named Derek. Derek was the kind of friend every woman needs in her life. He was in my law classes. We met freshman year and became glued to each other after a group project for Intro to Law. One of those presentations where you spend hours making a PowerPoint and literally no one pays attention. Not even the professor. Derek had a boyfriend, Ronnie. They lived together, and they were the cutest couple I knew. We soon realized they lived just 2 blocks away from me. We discovered this coincidence one night when I was complaining about having to take 2 different buses to get home. He asked where I lived, I told him, and bingo. From that day on, Derek gave me a ride home every single night. He never asked for gas money, never asked for a dime. Derek was just like that. He always refused when I tried to chip in. Ian, of course, hated it. "Katie, I don't like this whole thing of you coming home with another man every night. The neighbors are going to think you're cheating on me. Ian, he's gay. He lives with his boyfriend. I've told you this." "Yeah, well, that's the problem. A lot of guys just claim to be gay so they can get close to women." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It never came. He was dead serious. "Do you want to come pick me up then, Ian? Every night at 10 p.m. on campus? College was your idea. I was against it from the start. I have no obligation to go pick you up at 10 p.m. Then, drop it." The conversation died right there. Ian kept complaining from the couch, controller in hand, and I kept getting a ride home with Derek. Years went by. Work, college, chores, sleep, repeat. Suddenly, I was in my 4th year. I was so close, but at that point, I desperately needed to secure a legal clerkship. Without an internship, you don't graduate undergrad. Without that degree, you can't get into law school. And without law school, you aren't a lawyer. But there was a catch. It was incredibly hard to find a paid internship in Oakhaven that paid a living wage. I did the math, and it didn't add up. I made more as a cashier than any entry-level clerkship was going to pay me. If I quit my job at the supermarket, I wouldn't be able to cover my half of the rent, utilities, tuition, the dream house fund, and still afford groceries. It was impossible. I sat down with Ian. "Ian, I'm thinking about quitting my job at Fresh Fair to take a legal internship." He choked on his Coke. "You're going to do what?" "Quit my job to do my required internship so I can graduate." "And how much does it pay?" "About $1,000 a month." He laughed. It was that same laugh he always did, right before delivering his favorite catchphrase. "Katie, you have a job that pays above minimum wage, with full-time benefits, paid time off, and a 401k match. And you're going to throw that away to chase a dream that might not even work out? You're going to wreck our budget. It's temporary, Ian. Just for a year. A year of not paying bills means a ruined credit score. It means eviction. How are you going to pay your half of the rent? I'm not covering the bills by myself, I'm warning you right now. Isn't this what you wanted? Equal rights?" He gave me this smug "I told you so" look and went right back to his video game. So, I kept working as a cashier. The end of the year rolled around. I had just turned 29. To celebrate, Ian took me out to dinner, to the McDonald's at the mall where he worked. He ordered a McChicken for himself and a Big Mac for me. He used an in-app discount code and made a big show of paying the entire $15 bill using a gift card he won from his company. "This is my birthday present to you, babe." I said thank you, smiled, and ate my burger, acting thrilled. That cheap dinner was the last time I looked at him, thinking I was married to a man who loved me. Because a week later, I was going to discover something that would alter the course of my life forever. It was a Sunday, and I had the day off. Usually, when my day off fell on a Sunday, I went to visit my mom. But that day, I decided to stay home and do a massive deep clean. The house was a disaster zone. I rolled up my sleeves. Ian had gone to work. The house was mine. I mentally cataloged the tasks: laundry, scrub the bathroom, mop the floors, sweep behind the furniture, wash the windows. It was going to be a productive day. I started in the laundry room. There was a mountain of clothes. I started tossing things into the washer. I grabbed a denim jacket Ian wore to work, which he had tossed over a kitchen chair as usual. Before throwing it in the machine, I did what I always did. I checked the pockets. Ian had a terrible habit of leaving crumpled up cash in his pockets, and I had learned the hard way to always check. Front right pocket, nothing. Front left pocket, a stale piece of gum. Inside breast pocket, a folded piece of paper. I pulled it out. It was an invoice. I unfolded it. It was a tuition bill from Oak Haven State University. My first thought was, what is a college bill doing in Ian's jacket? I didn't print my bills. I paid everything through the student portal. I looked at the amount. $850. My monthly payment plan was $450. Then my eyes scanned down to the name of the student. Vanessa Powers. Journalism, evening program, senior year. I froze. Who? I read it again. Vanessa Powers. I didn't know anyone by that name. Never heard it in my life, but it was a tuition bill from my university, inside my husband's jacket. The very first thing I did was take out my phone and take a picture. I didn't even think. My fingers just moved on autopilot. A picture of the whole bill, a close-up of the name, a close-up of the account number. I left the paper on the kitchen table and went back to cleaning. I scrubbed the floors with my head down, my heartbeat pounding in my ears, my mind spinning out of control. What was that bill doing in his jacket? Who was Vanessa? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was a coworker. Maybe there was a totally logical explanation. It could be nothing. But my gut wasn't buying it. Ian got home at 8 p.m. He gave me a dry peck on the cheek and asked me to make him a sandwich. He sat on the couch and turned on the TV. I went to the kitchen, made the sandwich, grabbed the tuition bill, and sat down next to him. Ian, yeah, Baba? I found this bill inside your jacket pocket. Who is Vanessa? Ian choked on his sandwich. He coughed once, coughed twice, grabbed his glass of Coke, chugged it, and gasped for air. That wasn't the cough of someone who genuinely choked. It was the cough of someone desperately stalling for time to think, and he thought hard. Finally, he spoke, his voice jumping up an octave like a teenager caught sneaking out. Oh! Vanessa is Susan's daughter. From work. Susan didn't have time to run to the bank to pay the girls' tuition, so she asked me to do it. She gave me the cash. I paid it through my banking app and forgot to give the receipt back to her. It was a plausible excuse. To any distracted, trusting wife, it would have worked. Except for one tiny detail. I knew Susan. She had worked with Ian for years, and I had been to their corporate holiday parties. Susan was single and notoriously child-free. She made a point of telling everyone that her only children were her 3 Siamese cats. He was lying right to my face, but I pretended to buy it. I smiled and said, "Oh, okay, babe. Make sure you give it back to her tomorrow." I handed him the paper and went to the kitchen to wash the dishes. I needed to know what was actually going on. If he was lying, it was because he was hiding something huge. My forehead literally started to itch. You know that itch right at the hairline that every woman gets when her intuition is screaming at her? Yeah, when it itches, it's because the horns are already growing. I waited for him to fall asleep. Ian slept like a rock. Even more so when he drank beer. And that night, after my little interrogation, he drank 3 cans. Probably to calm his nerves. I grabbed his phone off the nightstand. I knew his passcode pattern. I had seen him draw it 1,000,000 times. Just a basic square, zero creativity. I unlocked it and opened his text messages. I found the thread with Vanessa. 2 years. Their conversation went back 2 full years. Texts, photos, voice memos, videos, tuition invoices, Venmo receipts, gifts, hotel bookings, him telling her, "I love you, baby. It's such a turn-on that you're so smart and beautiful. I miss you, my princess. Send me your tuition bill so I can pay it. Investing in education is so important." I cried. I couldn't hold it back. 2 years. For 2 years. He had been having an affair with this woman. 2 years of paying for her college. 2 years of telling her that investing in education was important. And for me, his wife of 6 years, I got the exact opposite. I got, "A piece of paper won't put food on the table. You're gonna screw us over if you quit your job. Do it with your own money." I wiped my face on the sleeve of my shirt. I cried what I needed to cry. I sat there in the dark living room, holding his phone. And then, the tears stopped. My body shifted gears. It turned into a cold, calculating rage, the absolute worst kind of rage there is. I started screenshotting. Everything. Every text, every photo, every Venmo receipt, every tuition bill paid. I emailed all of it to myself. Then I deleted the screenshots from his camera roll, deleted the sent email from his outbox, locked the phone, and placed it exactly where I found it on the nightstand. Sitting there in the dark, I swore to myself, they are going to pay. I opened my texts and messaged Derek. "Are you awake?" He replied instantly. "Katie, what are you doing up? Do you have tomorrow off?" "No, D. I just discovered something." I sent him the picture of the tuition bill. Then I sent him the screenshots of Ian and Vanessa's texts. I sent him everything. Katie, what is this? Ian has a mistress? Looks like it. And? Do you know her?" "No. But she's a journalism major at our school." "Give me a sec. Let me look her up on Insta." A few seconds later, "I can't find her. She doesn't have an IG. She's nowhere. I only found her name on Google from the Dean's List announcements. Who the hell doesn't have social media nowadays?" I sat there, gripping the phone, not knowing what to say. Derek texted again. "Wait. Senior year journalism? I have a friend in that cohort. Mason. Tomorrow on campus, I'm going to talk to him and see what I can dig up. Try to get some sleep, babe." I locked my phone and tried to sleep right there on the couch. When my alarm went off at 6 a.m., I got up like a zombie. I made coffee, put some toast and eggs on the table. Ian woke up, stretching, not even noticing I hadn't slept in bed. He ate his breakfast and drove off to work. I put on my Fresh Fare polo, took the bus, and scanned barcodes all day on autopilot. On the inside, I was grinding my teeth to dust. I clocked out at 4 p.m., went home, changed, made dinner, grabbed my backpack, and headed to campus. Derek was waiting for me outside the law building, looking like he was about to burst. "Katie, I talked to Mason. Vanessa is in his class. And get this. She has a boyfriend." I laughed. It was a nervous, hysterical laugh, the kind that escapes when your brain breaks. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious, honey. And there's more drama. Sit down before you fall over." I stayed standing, but he kept firing away. "Her boyfriend is going to propose to her at their graduation ceremony this Friday. The whole graduating class knows, except her. She's the valedictorian. And right after her speech, her boyfriend is going to give her flowers, and everyone is going to hold up signs that spell out, 'Vanessa, will you marry me?'" I stared at Derek, completely paralyzed. My brain had to reboot. This girl had a boyfriend, and she was sleeping with my husband. My husband was paying her tuition, and she had a whole official boyfriend on the side. "Derek, I'm going to kill this." And that bastard Ian. "Hold up, bestie, there's more. There is so much more. I found out something that is going to knock you on your ass. Brace yourself." I didn't move. He leaned in. Remember the screenshots you sent me last night? In one of them, Ian saved a photo of her. It looked super professional, like studio lighting. I cropped her face and ran it through a reverse Google image search. And? Spill it, Derek. Breathe, honey. She's on a high-end escort website, working under the name Vanessa Hilton. Vanessa spelled with a W, 2 L's, a K, and an H. So tacky. And Hilton, like Paris Hilton. Now I needed to sit down. I collapsed onto a concrete bench outside the building. My mind went into overdrive. Wait. Did Ian know she was an escort? Did he hire her? But how? Ian is a broke loser making $30K a year. How does someone making that little afford an escort? The math ain't mathing. No way. I realized it was far more likely Ian had no idea she was an escort. Or that she had a boyfriend. He got hooked by her. And she managed to manipulate my idiot husband into paying her tuition in exchange for a girlfriend experience relationship. Because based on the texts, it looked like a romantic relationship, not a client-provider dynamic. And there was another layer. If Vanessa had a boyfriend, and he was proposing at graduation, she definitely hadn't invited Ian to the ceremony. Imagine the disaster. She wouldn't want her broke side piece showing up to kiss her with cheap flowers in hand. Therefore, I concluded, there was a 99.9% chance Vanessa never told Ian she was walking the stage this Friday. My final capstone project in the art of being a blind, betrayed wife was complete. I looked up at Derek. He was staring at me with wide eyes, one hand clutching his elbow, the other resting over his heart in suspense. Derek, we are going to that graduation ceremony. He let out a massive sigh of relief. Oh, thank God. You were staring into the void for 2 minutes. I thought you were having a stroke. I broke down laughing. A real, genuine laugh. Derek's dramatic face lifted a weight off my chest I didn't even know was there. So, you coming with me? What exactly are you planning, Katie? I gave him my most diabolical smile. If my theory is right, this graduation is going to go down in local history. Derek flashed a massive grin, the smile of a man who realized he just scored front-row tickets to the greatest reality TV meltdown ever. I am so there. Count me in. That night, I got home, and my brain was running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Ian was on the couch playing Call of Duty, stuffing his face with Doritos, getting orange dust all over the controller. I said goodnight, went to the bedroom, laid down, and stared at the ceiling. The math finally clicked. Ian made about $2,500 a month. He paid half the rent, $750, electric, internet, and half the groceries, another $600, plus the $300 a month into our dream house fund. He also had his car payment, gas, new video games, and clothes. In the best-case scenario, he had maybe $300 of disposable income left over. Yet for the last 2 years, he was paying Vanessa's tuition nearly $800 a month, plus hotels, plus gifts. The numbers didn't add up. There was only one possible explanation. Ian was using the money from our dream house savings account to fund his sugar baby. Then my thoughts spiraled to something far darker. Ian and I had unprotected sex, and he was having sex with Vanessa for 2 years. Vanessa, an escort, was having sex with God knows how many clients. And those clients were having sex with their wives, girlfriends, or whoever else. I sat bolt upright in bed. Tomorrow morning, before work, I was going straight to the clinic. I needed an STI panel urgently. Tuesday morning arrived. Before Ian left for work, I casually asked, "Hey Ian, about how much do we have saved up for the house right now?" He was taking a sip of coffee and almost drooled it on his shirt. Babe, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I think we're sitting around 50 grand. But in this economy, that's barely a down payment. Only 50 grand? I thought we had saved way more. He stood up, grabbing his car keys. Well, Katie, if you weren't burning cash on your little college experiment, we'd have a lot more saved. I'm running late, bye. He walked out without finishing his coffee. The sound of his Honda Civic faded down the street, and I just sat there. Classic Ian. Always my fault. Always my education. I grabbed my purse and went straight to the county health clinic. I got tested for everything under the sun. On my lunch break, I walked down the street, eating a slice of pizza, heading to the law offices of Mark Darcy, Esquire. He was a family law attorney whose office was right down the street from the supermarket. It was a beautiful office, second floor of a nice commercial building, modern waiting area, a receptionist, private suites for the partners, and desks for paralegals outside. Mark Darcy was the senior partner, known around town as a brutal but fair divorce lawyer. When I walked into his office, I was surprised. I expected an old man with reading glasses perched on his nose, a loose tie, and a tired face. But Mark Darcy was none of that. He was in his early 30s, tall, lean, with dark hair showing the very first hints of silver at the temples. He wore stylish glasses and a crisp dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He had that calm demeanor of a man who had seen everything and couldn't be fazed. I sat in the chair across from his mahogany desk. I pulled my phone out of my bag. I told him everything from start to finish. I showed the screenshots. I showed the tuition invoice. I showed every single Venmo transfer I had sent Ian with the memo for our dream house. Mark listened in silence, resting his chin on his hand. When I finished, he adjusted his glasses, picked up a legal pad, jotted down 3 things, and looked at me. You documented everything perfectly. Dates, amounts, transfer receipts, the entire text thread in chronological order. This is incredibly organized. I smiled. Even though it wasn't really a time to smile. I'm a pre-law student at OSU. Senior year. He raised an eyebrow and gave a half smile. Well, then you already know half the battle. This is going to be very straightforward. He looked back at his notes. Let's get down to business, Katie. We are going to file for a contested divorce, and we are going to sue for the return of every single cent you deposited into his account labeled Dreamhouse, plus interest and adjusted for inflation. I nodded vigorously. That was exactly what I wanted to hear. I left his office clutching a yellow manila folder, feeling 1,000 pounds lighter. The house money wasn't lost. Every Venmo I sent with that sweet little memo was coming back to me, and if Ian had spent it all on his escort, well, he was going to have to sell a kidney to pay me back. I scheduled a follow-up appointment for the following Monday. On Wednesday, I got off work and went straight to my mom's house before class. I sat at her kitchen table and told her everything. When I finished, she stood up without saying a word. She walked over to her sewing kit and pulled out her heavy-duty fabric shears. Katie, I'm going to chop that bastard's thing right off. Mom! Put the scissors down. How dare that piece of trash do this to you? It took me 30 minutes to talk my mother out of committing a felony. Eventually, she agreed to help me the legal way. We arranged that I would slowly start sneaking my belongings over to her house throughout the week. Thursday morning, I went back to the clinic to get my test results. When the nurse handed me the envelope, my hands were shaking. I sat on a bench in the hallway and opened it. Negative, 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 positive. For chlamydia. I closed my eyes and took a deep, shuddering breath. Every ounce of rage I already harbored for Ian just leveled up. 7 years of absolute loyalty, and my parting gift from my husband was chlamydia, a souvenir from the hooker he was financing. I went into the doctor's office. She looked over the chart, asked if I had symptoms. None. Turns out, a massive percentage of people with it are asymptomatic. They only find out during routine screenings. The doctor wrote a prescription for antibiotics, 4 pills, taken all at once. You're going to need to notify your partner so he can get treated, the doctor said, not looking up from her clipboard. And your partner needs to notify any partners he's had in the last year. And their partners need to be informed as well. Chlamydia spreads like gossip in a small town, Katie. 1 untreated person infects 10. That's why communication is a mandatory part of the treatment. Communication is part of the treatment. I loved that. Oh, I was going to communicate it. In the most effective way possible. I picked up the pills at the pharmacy and swallowed all 4 right there at the counter with a paper cup of water. Walking out into the bright sunshine, I had one absolute certainty in my mind. Ian Fletcher was going to regret the day he was born. I got to the supermarket, handed my manager a doctor's note for the missed hours, and asked to swap my shift so I could have Friday night off. Approved. Friday. Graduation day. The morning was bright and sunny. I woke up before my alarm. Ian was still asleep, mouth open, drooling on his pillow. I looked at his face, and I felt an almost uncontrollable urge to grab my mom's fabric shears and fulfill her violent fantasies. But I had a plan, and my plan was way better than castration. I got up, went to the kitchen, started the coffee maker, and put out bagels and cream cheese. I sat down. He shuffled in, rubbing his eyes, smelling like a dead raccoon. He sat across from me and started eating. In my mind, I grabbed the pot of scalding coffee and threw it in his face. Then I grabbed red pepper flakes and rubbed them into his eyes. Then I hit him over the head with my mom's cast iron skillet. Ian's voice snapped me out of my trance. "You okay, Katie? You look like you're daydreaming." I swallowed my hatred. I smiled. I poured him his coffee and cast the bait. "Oh, babe. I was just spacing out, thinking about the graduation ceremony tonight for the College of Communications." He stopped chewing. He looked at me, cheeks stuffed with bagel. "Fashion and journalism? Yeah, the seniors. It's open to the public. Starts at 7 p.m. Campus is going to be packed. I can't wait until it's my turn. I'm so anxious for it, just one more year." I saw the seed take root in his brain, the gears violently turning behind his eyes. He swallowed his food fast, chugged his coffee in silence, grabbed his keys, gave me another dry kiss on the cheek, gross, and left. Just as I suspected, Vanessa hadn't told him she was walking the stage today, but I knew Ian wouldn't miss it for the world. He had paid for half of that diploma. He was going to want to see his girl grab that degree. The only risk was, what if he called her to confront her? Would she invent an excuse? Would she tell him not to come? It was a gamble. We'd see. At noon, my phone buzzed. A text from Ian. "Hey babe, gonna have to work overtime tonight. Huge sneaker drop at the mall. Gonna be crazy. Be home late." "Sure, Ian. I was born yesterday." I texted back. "Okay, babe. Make that commission. Kiss." That idiot was definitely going. At 6 p.m., I grabbed my backpack and headed to campus, looking like it was just another normal evening class. I arrived at the auditorium, and Derek was already waiting for me by the entrance. Right behind him was a food truck selling funnel cakes and churros, a staple at university events. We bought a caramel-stuffed churro each and walked into the main auditorium. It was already packed. Derek pulled my sleeve, and we went all the way up to the top bleachers, sitting in the very back, hidden in the shadows. Families were pouring in, buzzing with excitement. Grandparents clutching wrapped gifts. Dads wrangling toddlers. Moms fixing their daughters' hair in the lobby. Flowers, balloons. It smelled like perfume and pure, unfiltered parental pride. And that's when I saw him, walking through the main double doors, wearing his blue step-right shoes, polo uniform, and khaki pants, clutching a massive bouquet of red roses. The man of the hour. My soon-to-be ex-husband. I elbowed Derek. "Look who just walked in." Derek followed my gaze. When he saw the flowers, he slapped a hand over his mouth. "Girl, I can't." He brought flowers. The second-hand embarrassment is lethal. In 7 years of marriage, Ian had never bought me a single flower. He always said it was throwing money in the garbage because they just wilt in a week. But apparently, throwing money in the garbage was totally fine for his hooker. The house lights began to dim. The crowd hushed. An older man walked up to the podium on stage. Gray hair, gray suit, reading glasses on a chain. Probably the dean or a tenured professor who got roped into hosting and couldn't say no. "Good evening, everyone. It is with immense gratitude that we gather here today to celebrate." Blah, blah, blah. The usual sappy academic speech. He finished to polite applause and started calling the graduates. Public relations majors went first. There were only about 8 of them. They walked across the stage, grabbed their fake diploma tubes, smiled for the camera, and sat in the front rows. Every name triggered a localized explosion of cheering in the crowd. Air horns, custom signs, crying mothers. Then came the journalism majors. About 30 of them. They went up one by one. And finally, the name was called Vanessa Powers. The audience erupted louder than they had for anyone else. Her classmates were hyped. It was obvious she was the main character of this cohort. Screams, applause, whistling. She walked across that stage like she was competing for Miss America. I'm surprised she didn't blow kisses. She wore a tailored black gown that fit tighter than everyone else's, red stiletto heels that perfectly matched her lipstick, Platinum blonde hair styled to perfection, professional makeup, false lashes. She walked deliberately slow, soaking it in. I won't lie, the girl was stunning. She took her diploma tube, flashed a perfectly rehearsed, dazzling smile for the photographer, waved at the crowd, and went to sit in the front row. I looked down at Ian. He was sitting in the middle section, sporting the goofiest, most love-struck grin I had ever seen, looking like a kid on Christmas morning. They finished calling the names. The dean returned to the podium. And now, please welcome our journalism class valedictorian, Vanessa Powers. I sat up straight in my seat. I took a bite of my churro. It was showtime. Vanessa stood up and walked to the podium, glowing like she was about to accept an Oscar. She adjusted the mic. Good evening, esteemed faculty, my wonderful classmates, and beloved families. Today is a deeply special day. Especially for me, coming from a simple blue-collar family, I had to fight for this. I woke up at 5 a.m. every single day to study before going to work. I hustled, I grinded, and I paid my own way through college with my own blood, sweat, and tears. And standing here today, I can finally say, it was worth it. Hard work pays off. I looked at Derek. Derek looked at me and whispered, she was waking up at 5 a.m. to service clients? Damn, the grind really never stops. Can you imagine working a job where everyone literally wants to you? I practically choked on my churro trying not to laugh out loud. Derek was ruthless. Down below, I could see Ian shifting uncomfortably in his seat, crossing his right leg, then his left, scratching his neck, looking at his roses, then up at the stage. You could practically see the smoke coming out of his ears as his hollow brain tried to process her speech about paying her own way. Vanessa wrapped up with a cliché closer. To finish, on behalf of our class, I want to thank our parents, our professors, and everyone who believed in us. This degree belongs to you just as much as it belongs to us. Thank you. And good night. Thunderous applause. Her mom was recording on an iPad. Her dad was crying tears of joy. Poor guys. And that's when a man stood up from the middle rows. He was wearing a sharp suit and tie. Brown hair, nice eyes. Very handsome. It was her official boyfriend, Brian. Brian walked right up the stage stairs carrying a bouquet twice the size of Ian's. He gently took the mic from the dean, who smiled warmly, clearly in on the surprise. Brian flashed the most fiercely romantic smile I've ever seen on a man's face. He cleared his throat. Vanessa, my love. The entire auditorium went dead silent. Vanessa gasped and covered her mouth. 3 years ago, I met you. And from that very first day, I knew you were the woman of my dreams. Today, in front of our families, our friends, and the mentors who watched you grow, Brian dropped to one knee. He pulled out a velvet box. At the exact same moment, all her journalism classmates in the background stood up and held up their letterboards, spelling out, Vanessa, will you marry me? Vanessa burst into hysterical, happy tears right there on stage. Yes! Yes, Brian. 1,000,000 times yes. She threw her arms around his neck, nearly tackling him. Roses scattered across the stage floor. They made out right there in front of the whole university. He slipped the ring on her finger. The crowd lost their minds. Her mom was shrieking. Her dad was yelling, "Oh my God! My little girl!" Everyone was recording. It was genuinely a beautiful, movie-perfect moment. I looked down at Ian, and that's when it happened. Ian violently shoved his chair back, stood up, pointed his cheap roses at the stage, and screamed at the top of his lungs, I paid for your college. You, scammer! And you had a boyfriend? He was standing there, his face beet red, veins bulging out of his neck. The entire auditorium froze. The cheering stopped instantly. The silence was deafening. I almost dropped my churro. I knew he'd be mad, but I wasn't expecting a full-blown psychotic meltdown. Vanessa's mother whipped around in her seat, furious. Are you insane? You are ruining the best moment of my daughter's life. Who the hell are you? I looked at the stage. All the color had drained from Vanessa's face. She looked like she had just seen the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future all at once. Her jaw was unhinged, Ian, absolutely possessed by rage, let out a villainous laugh. You want to know who I am, lady? I'm your daughter's boyfriend. I'm the one who paid for her last 2 years of tuition. And I'm just now finding out she's got a whole other guy. Vanessa finally managed to find her voice. What is this? He's lying. I've never seen this man in my life. Ian laughed harder. Really, Vanessa? Never seen me? He aggressively tapped on his phone screen for 3 seconds, then turned the screen to face the crowd. From where I was sitting in the back, I couldn't clearly see the photo. But based on the collective gasp from the people sitting near him and the absolute horror on her parents' faces in the front row, it was highly explicit. People covered their mouths. Eyes widened. People started whispering frantically to the person next to them. Ian started marching down the aisle toward Vanessa's family, holding his phone up in the air like Simba on Pride Rock. You want to see more, lady? I've got hundreds. Look at this one. Look, what about this one? Do you recognize the guy next to her in this one? From the stage, Vanessa shrieked, "Stop it, Ian! Stop!" Ian looked up at her, a psychotic grin plastered on his face. Oh, so your memory works now, Vanessa? Now you know who I am? Brian, who up until this point had been standing frozen, trying to comprehend what reality he had just entered, finally snapped out of it. His protective instincts kicked in. Back off right now, man, or I'm calling the cops. Ian didn't stop. He stomped right up the stairs onto the stage. The two men stood chest to chest. The shoving started. Brian shoved Ian. Ian shoved back. Brian threw a right hook straight into Ian's jaw. Ian hit the deck, scrambled back up, and lunged. The two of them were rolling around on the graduation stage, throwing punches. Vanessa was paralyzed. But the craziest part was the look in her eyes. It was pure, system failure panic. She looked at the crowd. She looked at her two boyfriends beating each other bloody. She looked at her classmates standing frozen with the "Will you marry me" signs. Her mouth kept opening and closing without any sound coming out, like a fish out of water. The day that was supposed to be her crowning achievement had turned into a nightmare in front of 300 people. And do you think her beloved classmates stepped in to break up the fight or comfort her? Absolutely not. These were journalism majors. They were experiencing the greatest scoop of their entire academic careers. Every single one of them had their phones out, recording vertically. Panning, zooming, getting all the angles. Some were standing on chairs. A few looked horrified, but the rest were giddy, knowing this footage was going viral before midnight. As for the professors and campus security, they all scurried out the side doors to call for backup, but really, none of them got paid enough to catch a stray punch from two brawling townies. That's when a thought crystallized in my mind. I looked at Derek. Derek, I've known Ian for 7 years. I know for a fact that after this level of public humiliation, if I tell him about the disease privately, his pride won't let him warn Vanessa. He'll just ghost her. And Vanessa is going to keep infecting client after client. Every client will take it home to their wives. In 3 months, Oakhaven is going to have a chlamydia epidemic. I won't be able to sleep knowing I could have stopped it. I told him my idea. Derek covered his mouth. Are you serious, Katie? You have the guts to do that? I gave him my signature smirk, the smile of a woman who had nothing left to lose. I stood up from my seat, unbothered, still holding my half-eaten cold churro in my left hand, and started walking down the stadium stairs toward the stage. I stuck to the shadows against the wall. No one noticed me. All eyes were glued to the cage match happening next to the podium. I walked up the stage stairs. Ian and Brian were still wrestling on the floor, throwing sloppy punches. The microphone had been knocked over and was lying on the carpet. I walked slowly. I stopped right next to Ian's head. He happened to be pinned flat on his back at that exact moment. Now, I am not proud of what I did next. Please don't judge me. But in that specific moment, I was a betrayed, underpaid wife who had just been diagnosed with an STI. I leaned down, and I smashed what was left of my caramel-stuffed churro directly into the center of Ian's face. Cold, sticky caramel shot up his nose and smeared across his eyes. Chunks of fried dough and cinnamon sugar embedded themselves in his patchy mustache. Brian, who was straddling Ian and gearing up for another punch, froze mid-swing. He let go of Ian and stumbled backward, looking at me like, "Who the hell is this crazy woman? And why is she assaulting him with a pastry?" I casually wiped my sticky hand on my jeans, stood back up, and picked the microphone off the floor. Ian shrieked. What the? He frantically clawed at his face, spitting out caramel. Completely blinded and confused. He tilted his head back to see who had attacked him, and that's when he saw me. Standing over him, dead center of the stage, holding the mic. Katie? Katie, what are you doing here? I ignored him. I tapped the mic twice. Thump, thump. It was still live. Excuse me. The auditorium fell dead silent. Heads snapped toward me. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Fletcher. I am the wife of 6 years to Ian Fletcher. This pathetic guy right here. I pointed down at him. The crowd erupted in frantic whispers. He's married? The guy paying her tuition has a wife? I let the murmurs ride for a second, then continued. Earlier this week, I discovered that my husband has been having an affair for the last 2 years with our lovely valedictorian here. I gestured toward Vanessa, who was currently cowering near the heavy velvet stage curtains, trying to blend into the fabric. As you all just heard, he was gracious enough to confirm that fact publicly. You are all my witnesses. Ian, still on the floor, whined, Katie, babe, let me explain. I kept speaking, not even looking at him. Well, when I discovered the affair, I also discovered a few details about the lifestyle Vanessa leads to afford her tuition, and what I found was concerning enough that I ran straight to the health department to get a full STD panel. Absolute pin-drop silence in the auditorium. My test came back positive for chlamydia. A collective gasp echoed through the room. A woman in the front row clutched her pearls. Someone in the back yelled, "Oh, Jesus!" I kept my voice perfectly steady. In my 7 years with this man, I have never strayed. Not once. Which means I caught it from him. I paused to let the devastating reality sink in. I looked down at Ian. His face was a masterpiece. The sheer terror of realizing, live on stage, in front of 300 people, with caramel dripping off his chin, that he had a venereal disease and had given it to his wife. But we all know how this works, don't we? If he gave it to me, Vanessa definitely has it too. And if Vanessa has it, her fiancé absolutely has it. And anyone else in this room who might have crossed paths with Vanessa recently. Well, you understand where I'm going with this. That was the moment the house of cards completely collapsed for about half the room. And I hadn't even said the worst part. But from my vantage point on stage, I had a front row seat to the fallout. Down in the first row, a man in a gray suit buried his face in his hands, looking like he was begging God to strike him with lightning. His wife turned to him with a lethal glare. A few rows back, a college guy aggressively started rubbing his neck, sweating bullets. The girl sitting next to him whispered something. He gave her a look of pure, guilty terror, and she stood up and stormed out. He chased after her. Arguments broke out. People were power-walking toward the exits. It was absolute pandemonium. I looked at Vanessa. She was scanning the audience in sheer panic. I could see the cogs turning in her head. She was probably counting how many of her regulars were sitting in that crowd, calculating the collateral damage. It was a shame I couldn't legally announce into the microphone that she was a high-end escort, otherwise I could face a defamation lawsuit. But luckily, an absolute legend in the crowd did the dirty work for me. A middle-aged man stood up near the back, red-faced and furious, pointed a finger at the stage, and yelled as he stomped toward the exit. How does a luxury escort agency that charges $1,000 an hour not mandate health screenings? I'm suing the agency! He slammed the door behind him. The crowd went quiet for about 2 seconds, processing the bomb that had just been dropped. Then, total chaos. She's an escort? Like, for old people? No, Susan. Escort is fancy for a prostitute. Good Lord. That was the exact moment both Ian and Brian turned to look at Vanessa. Live, on stage, the two men fighting over her realized simultaneously that she was a sex worker. Ian crawled toward me, grabbing at my ankles, practically begging. Babe, I didn't know she was an escort. I swear to God. Katie, please forgive me. She manipulated me. I was an idiot. I swear I didn't mean to give you anything, I swear. I looked down at his pathetic, crying, sticky face and let out a dry, hollow laugh. as if the fact that he didn't know she was a sex worker somehow absolved him of betraying me for 2 years in a parallel universe. You are a disgusting traitor, Ian. Nothing will ever make me forgive you. By the way, I've already moved all my things out of the house. On Monday, my attorney, Mark Darcy, Esquire, is filing for divorce. And you better start saving your pennies, because I know you used our dream house fund to pay for her. I am taking back every single cent you stole from me, with interest. Ian opened his mouth to argue. Katie, you can't do this to me. You don't have the guts. I do, and I already did. At that moment, I heard Vanessa sobbing hysterically behind me. I turned around. She was on her knees, clinging desperately to the leg of Brian's suit pants. Her graduation gown was twisted. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup streaked down her face. She was begging in this high-pitched, childlike voice. Brian, please forgive me. It was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. I love you, Brian, I swear. I want to marry you. A fling that lasted 2 years, I thought to myself. Brian looked down at her. No anger. No pity. Just total, chilling emptiness. It's the kind of look that hurts worse than getting screamed at. She kept sobbing, clutching his leg. Slowly, he reached down and took her hand. I saw Vanessa flash a tiny, pathetic smile of hope. She thought he was caving. She thought he was going to forgive her and pull her up so they could walk away together. Instead, Brian held her hand steady, gripped the diamond engagement ring he had slipped on her finger not 10 minutes ago, and pulled it right off. Wait. Hold on. 10 minutes? Yes, guys, this entire Jerry Springer episode unfolded in less than 10 minutes. Anyway, moving on. Without saying a single word, without giving her a second glance, Brian turned his back and walked down the stage stairs. He strode up the center aisle, head held high, not looking at anyone, not crying, completely stoic. He walked out the main doors, and that was the last time anyone in Oakhaven ever saw him. Vanessa wailed after him, Brian, come back! Please, I love you! He didn't look back. Then, Vanessa's parents marched up onto the stage. Her mother was sobbing uncontrollably. Her dad's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth would shatter. Vanessa saw them, threw her arms open, seeking comfort, and tried to stagger toward her mother on those red stilettos, but her dad was faster. He put a flat palm out, stopping her in her tracks. He didn't yell. He spoke very quietly. But I heard him. You can come home to pack your bags, Vanessa. You are no longer welcome under my roof. You are a disgrace to this family. He turned his back. The mother followed him, not even able to look her daughter in the eye. They walked down the stairs and left. Vanessa was totally alone. She slowly turned and looked at Ian with one final, desperate glimmer of hope. Ian, Babe? Babe? You have the nerve to call me baby? Ian spat, venom in his voice. You played me for 2 years. I paid your tuition. I bought you things. And you had a fiancé? And you're a prostitute? I lost my wife because of you. I lost my life because of you. You aren't worth the dirt on my shoes. Ian stumbled off the stage, wiping the last bits of churro off his face, sporting a massive black eye. Vanessa collapsed to her knees and looked at me. I think it was a final Hail Mary. Maybe the betrayed wife would take pity on her. Sisterhood and all that. Sisterhood my ass. I turned my back. I walked down the stairs in total silence. I didn't look back once. When I looked up at the auditorium, I realized there wasn't a single person left in their seats. Everyone was bottlenecked in the aisles, rushing toward the exits. The circus was over. On my way out, I passed couples screaming at each other in the lobby, wives dragging their husbands by the ear, students sprinting to their cars, still recording voice memos for their group chats. Oakhaven was fundamentally changed from that night onward. Derek was waiting for me at the end of the hall. He linked his arm through mine. We walked out the front doors together, unbothered, parting the crowd like the Red Sea. That's when campus security finally showed up, jogging into the building. A little late, guys. If someone had a weapon, we all would have been done for. We got into Derek's car. He turned to me with the most wicked, adoring smile. Katie, you were magnificent. It was like watching a Broadway play. Every word hit its mark. And the churro in the face? Cinematic masterpiece. We burst out laughing. Okay, Derek said, pulling out his phone. I sent the link to Vanessa's escort profile to Mason. He said he's rushing to his dorm to write an exposé for the campus blog. It's going up tomorrow morning. It's gonna break the internet, babe. We'll watch the fallout tomorrow. I leaned my head against the passenger window and closed my eyes. For the first time in a week, I took a real, deep breath. By the next day, Mason's article was live. In 24 hours, it had 2 million views on TikTok. 2 days later, it had been picked up by national drama pages. Ian and Vanessa became a literal meme. As for the town, within a week, every urgent care and clinic in Oakhaven was booked solid. The lines for STD testing wrapped around the block. Mason became the official gossip influencer of the county, getting invited to VIP events and restaurant openings. 3 months later, he dropped out of school and got a talent manager in LA. Vanessa was effectively exiled. She vanished from town. Brian vanished too, the only true victim in this whole mess. As for Ian, I wished he would vanish, but unfortunately, he stuck around like a bad smell. He started showing up at Fresh Fare every single day, causing huge scenes, crying on his knees in the parking lot, begging me to take him back. After 2 weeks of this, my store manager called me into the office and fired me. He said customers were complaining, and the store was losing business because of my husband's daily freakouts. I left the supermarket and walked straight to Mark Darcy's office. He squeezed me in between appointments. I told him the news. Ian had caused so much harassment at my job that I was terminated. Mark took a deep breath, jotted it down on his legal pad, and adjusted his glasses. Katie, this is serious. You were fired because he persistently harassed you at your place of employment? Excellent. I am adding lost wages and severe economic distress to the damages on your divorce settlement. We'll wring him dry for this too. I nodded, incredibly satisfied. But then Mark sat back in his leather chair, steeled his posture, and changed his tone. On a related note, Katie, the demand for divorce attorneys in Oakhaven has skyrocketed since that graduation ceremony. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've taken on 10 new retainer clients, and every single one of those women told me they came to my office specifically because you recommended me. I blinked, confused for a second. Then it hit me. On the stage. When I yelled into the microphone that my lawyer, Mark Darcy, was filing for divorce. Oh my God, Mark, I am so sorry. I wasn't thinking. It just slipped out in the heat of the moment. I didn't mean to drag your name into a public spectacle. Mark held up a hand and smiled, the first genuine, full smile I had seen from him. Katie, relax. I'm not complaining. I'm thanking you. You just booked my firm solid for the next 6 months. And because of this influx, I desperately need to hire another legal clerk. Since you're finishing up your pre-law degree and applying to law schools, it's a perfect fit. I'd like to offer you the job. I looked at him, beaming. I accept, Mark. Thank you. I knew the clerkship paid a bit less than my supermarket job, but combined with my severance pay, unemployment benefits, and cashing out my 401k, I had enough to float by comfortably for a few years. More importantly, I was finally getting my foot in the door of the legal field. It was exactly what I wanted. I walked out of his office thinking, 10 divorces in a small town in 2 weeks? How many of those were directly Vanessa's fault? Just how many clients did this girl have in Oakhaven? I looked up at the sky and thanked the Lord I only caught chlamydia. Speaking of Vanessa, 2 months later, she popped up in another one of Mason's TikToks. He discovered she had quit escorting and pivoted to OnlyFans. So, at least she was still working in the industry she loved. My divorce was finalized a year later. The judge completely hammered Ian. He was ordered to pay me back $40,000 every cent of the Dreamhouse Venmo transfers, plus interest long, with $15,000 in attorney fees and punitive damages for dissipating marital assets. He's still selling sneakers at StepRite Shoes. His manager only kept him on because they play softball together. Sadly, Ian didn't have to resort to escorting to pay me back. He just took out a massive, crippling personal loan and is paying me back in 120 monthly installments. I graduated from OSU. I got into law school, finished my JD, took the bar exam, and passed on my first try. Derek passed the same week. Shortly after, he and Ronnie moved to Chicago. Derek got hired as a junior associate at a massive corporate firm, one of those places with 100 lawyers spanning 3 floors of a skyscraper. But the distance never ruined our friendship. Every time he flies back to Ohio to visit his folks, we meet up. Dinners, drinks, and gossiping until 2 a.m. He's my best friend, and always will be. To celebrate me passing the bar, Mark took me out to a fancy new steakhouse in town. I'll let you in on a secret. I'd had a massive crush on him since the first day I walked into his office. Apparently, the feeling was mutual. We officially started dating 2 weeks after that dinner. The law firm exploded in growth over the years. Mark hired 5 more attorneys, leased the floor above us, and doubled the paralegal team. After 3 years of dating, I was called into Mark's office first thing in the morning. I assumed it was about a client or a deposition, but when I walked in, he was sitting at his desk. In front of him were 2 folders. One red, one blue. He stood up. "Katie, I called you in here to ask you 2 questions. Do you want to be my law partner?" He opened the blue folder. It was a partnership agreement, adding my name to the firm. Before I could even process it, he opened the red folder. Inside was a diamond ring. He walked around the desk and got down on one knee. "And do you want to be my wife?" I bawled like a baby. I said yes to both. Since my finances were fantastic, I decided it was time to let my mom retire. I bought her a gorgeous condo in the nicest part of Oak Haven, an HOA community with a pool, a fitness center, a clubhouse, green walking trails, and weekly bingo nights. She made a whole group of friends within a week and is finally enjoying the retirement she deserved 20 years ago. When I told her Mark and I were engaged, she cried, wiped her face with a dish towel, hugged me tight, and said, "You know, honey, sometimes terrible things are just blessings in disguise. Ian was put in your path so that you'd end up exactly where you are today, with the man you were meant to marry. Everything happens for a reason." In that moment, my entire journey flashed before my eyes. Marrying a deadbeat, deciding to go to college at 25, choosing to stay home to clean instead of visiting my mom, finding that piece of paper in his jacket, Derek being friends with Mason, getting the STD test, the graduation proposal, the guy screaming about suing the agency, Ian getting me fired, Mark offering me the job. Every single puzzle piece, every right and wrong choice, had been writing my story up to this exact moment, without me even realizing it. And that is the message I want to leave you with today. Your life might feel like a disaster right now. It might feel like a chaotic mess with no exit. But maybe, just maybe, it's simply in the middle of a rewrite. Be patient. Every piece of the puzzle will snap into place, at the right time, in the right location, without you even noticing.